everybody, Jennifer Roberts here, Podqueen, and I have guests with me today. We have Erin and Bree, and we are going to be talking about our moms in honor of Mother's Day. And I think, well, first of all, ladies, I just need to tell you, you've already seen the NBC shopping little deal I did. This is my biggest find from NBC. This was 99 cents. That's 1 penny less than $1.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Regularly $140. Would I have paid that? No. But 99 cents? Yeah. With tax, what, $1.05?
Yeah.
I feel like it's in the budget.
Yeah,
it's
good. Make that work.
I can make that work. So the reason we're talking about our moms today, well, first of all, I think every mother basically feels like a loser. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think there's the aspect, you guys will find out, they don't have children yet. So the aspect of motherhood, you just don't know if it's going to go well in terms of what are you producing, what fruit are you having. Especially in the early years, you're disciplining a lot. You feel like you're always saying, don't lick that, don't put that in your mouth, quit pulling your sister's hair. And if you're a young mom, you're in that right now. And you don't know that there is another season coming. And then if you're an older mom, you look back with regret. And so it feels like motherhood is always a dance between condemnation and hope. And so we want to honor moms because it's an honorable profession. It's an honorable thing that God has given as a gift. And so I have my friends with me today. And girls, we're going to talk about your moms. So I want to know looking back in terms of discipline. Mm-hmm. Just, your mom, of course, it's appropriate that we're disciplined. People?
Agreed.
You've got to discipline your children. I'd say, avoid burning with a cigarette. Do not use duct tape. Though that's called abuse. Those things are wrong. But in terms of setting limits and boundaries, that creates safety for a child. So most of you that are watching, you get that. So you guys had, I would assume, a healthy form of discipline.
Yes.
And so looking back now, what are some limitations that your moms put on you that maybe you didn't like at the time, but you've had time to reflect now because you're in your 20s, and you can go, hey, maybe Mom knew what she was doing after all. Like, what can you think of?
Yeah, I remember even as a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, my parents would spank. They would discipline with the rod.
The rod.
The rod. And so they put it in the purse. We know when we went out, we had restaurant behavior. Before we got into the restaurant, they would lay out, okay, what's restaurant behavior?
Okay, so it was clear to you what was right and wrong.
Very clear. Yeah. And so, but if we broke those rules, or if we were grocery shopping and threw a fit because we weren't getting what we wanted, they would, they'd give you a warning, and then if you kept doing it, they would spank me, and then we would go home. We wouldn't even get the groceries.
Really?
And so they instilled at a young age that they kept to their word.
Right.
When they would, warn me about it and say, hey, you're going to get the rod if you don't stop.
So
when I wouldn't stop, I'd get the rod. But then I remember being 6 and 7, and we would be out shopping or at a restaurant, and I would see other kids, at the table screaming, throwing fits, and I'd be like, they need the rod. Like, even at 7 or 8, I knew that the rod worked, that I was now, well behaved for the most part, and understood that it worked and it was right to have behavior out in public and different things, or when we would go over, different people's houses. We couldn't just run rampant in the house because we were there with other kids. We had just guidelines, and it would be when we're in the car, before we got out, we would just rehearse, okay, what's behavior for going to someone's house, a restaurant. And so I was so grateful. And even as an adult now, walking around and seeing kids go crazy sometimes, I'm like, I know what I'm going to do to instill those values. So.
Right. And so it never felt like rejection to you.
No.
That's good.
I was actually grateful. I remember thanking my parents, even at a young age. Yeah.
That's awesome.
For that, so.
Wow. That's awesome. Because, my kids haven't thanked me yet for discipline. I'm hoping
It'll
they do.
Come one day.
Oh, good. What about you, Erin? Looking back, what are some limitations or boundaries that you go, wow, Mom, you knew what you were doing?
I think we always had the spanking option. We always knew growing up that there was that spanking option, there was the spoon option, but I don't ever remember actually my parents following through on that. But I think in a good way, I feel like they were always able to kind of talk us into, okay, this is right, this is wrong, and it never actually got to that. I mean, I'm sure I was spanked, probably, but because I never wanted to, once they gave me that warning.
It was enough for you.
It was enough, and I think that my mom had, just looking back, she had so much patience and so much mercy that she was able to talk sense into us of, hey, what you're doing is not right. And I feel like at a young age I had the sense of right and wrong because of they were always able to talk me through those things.
Yeah. See, that's interesting because what you both just described was limits and discipline, but done differently. Mm-hmm. And so it's important, moms, to realize every child is different. So one child is going to respond better to a spanking, another to a timeout, another one to a warning, another to a privilege being removed. So there's not a set way to do that.
I even think of my brother, because he's 4 years younger than me. I mean, I was a strong-willed, strong-headed child, and so I got the rod quite a bit at a younger age, and so I could imagine him growing up and watching me,
learning,
and he learned a whole lot just through me. He never got the rod as much as I. And I was like, how come? I kind of was like, he needs it. But he was so much more just laid back, even as a child, in his personality.
He was more compliant.
That he didn't need it. He could be talked, through it, and would just instantly obey. Where I had to, learn the hard way a ton through it. So I can think of the different personalities that we had.
Right. And how many kids were in your family, Erin?
There's 3.
Okay. And where are you in the birth order?
Middle child.
Ooh.
Only girl.
Come on. Come on. And so, different personality types in your family?
Yes, my older brother is more, he was more reserved.
Yeah.
He was just that strong leader. Growing up, I was like, he never does anything wrong. He's the perfect child.
Yeah.
My younger brother is kind of the opposite. He, kind of pushed the boundaries, was kind of the wild child as far as, jumping off of trees and things like that. So I was kind of stuck in the middle, where I was kind of a tomboy. I kind of had that wild edge, but at the same time, I was a little bit more reserved.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what about communication, like with your moms? Were they, because I know that there's all kinds of categories of relationship in the mother-daughter world. Mm-hmm. And some are like, oh my gosh, let's just lay on the bed and talk all night. And others, have a different approach. And so in terms of relatability to your moms, what was that like? Because I know we're going to have differences, and I don't think there's one that's above the other. Mm-hmm. So would you have just sat and talked with your mom about everything, or how was that relationship?
I think with my mom, at a younger age, I really looked up to my mom as that female figure, that female leader, and so it was more of like a mom relationship. But as I got older, as I went through high school, it became more of a friendship of, hey, I'm going to share my heart with you, and I got to see a side of her that I didn't, experience growing up, just because it was that time of life where it was different.
Right.
And so in the past probably 10 years, I've really enjoyed that aspect of my mom where I feel like she's my friend, where I can tell her, I can tell her everything. Yeah. And I get to hear her insights that I didn't hear, as in grade school, but it was a different.
Which would have been inappropriate.
Right. And so we didn't have like that, my mom's my best friend, but at the same time I looked up to her, and it was good.
Mm-hmm. What about you with communication with your mom?
Yeah,
what was that like?
I would say we were super close. Even when I was younger, we would fight a ton. Same personality, would kind of butt heads. But then as I got older, and realized, wow, she actually knows a lot. And watching the way that she loved my dad as a wife and served, we would have more talks in my teenager years, and I would just ask her questions because I watched the fruit of her life, that there was wisdom on her life, and so I wanted to glean from her, but we didn't necessarily do the let's sit on the couch and pour out our hearts, but I was very much asking her lots of questions because I saw that there was, something. She loved the Lord, she served my dad with all her heart, and she loved us well, and so I wanted to learn how and why.
No, that's good. So was your family walking with the Lord when you were younger?
Yes. We, my dad actually grew up in the church that my parents still go to.
Oh, wow.
So they've gone to the same church for 30 plus years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Stability. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And your family, believers, right? Growing up.
Yeah, my dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
So grew up in the church, and so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Well, this is just a little snippet for the moms. Just, what is this? A 10-minute interview. And just to give hope for young moms, these are excellent caliber women, incredible women. And I think you both would say, we're not going to put on camera their moms were bad, of course. But of course they made mistakes. They were human. And so they've been able to move past the fact that they were raised by human beings and see the good in them and to be able to rise up and call their moms blessed. And so I think that's awesome. So young moms be encouraged. Older moms be encouraged. Look at what got produced. I think half the time we don't know what we're doing as moms. It's the blind leading the blind. I came from a non-Christian family, so there wasn't the concept of mentoring and calling out and all of that. And so I felt in many ways I had to kind of figure it out on my own. But in the process, we need God, and we find God. And I think spiritually, your parents had the benefit of crying out to the Lord for help. They probably cried out for help more than you know. Maybe you heard them screaming out, help! So we want to say, Happy Mother's Day. Enjoy this day, and may the fruit of your womb rise up and call you blessed.